Spotlight.
This is Akashvani. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on the Partition Horrors Remembrance Day, remembering the past, reaffirming the commitment to unity. The participants are Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and Ramya, anchor.
Some dates are not merely marked on a calendar. They live on in the memories of those who survived them. In today's edition of Spotlight, on Partition Horrors Remembrance Day, we remember one of the most painful chapters in the history of the Indian subcontinent. Partition was not simply the division of a piece of land. It was the division of lives, families, homes, friendships, and identities. For millions, there was no time to say proper goodbyes. They left behind their homes, neighborhoods, businesses, friends, and in many cases, members of their own families. They became refugees in a land they had always considered their own. And yet, the story of partition is not only a story of loss. It is also a story of extraordinary resilience. To shed more light on the partition horrors, the resilience of the survivors, and the importance of this day, we have with us in our Akashvani studios today Mr. Ashok Tandon, political analyst. Thank you for joining Akashvani, sir.
Thank you.
So, Ashok sir, the Government of India announced in 2021 that the 14th of August would be observed as Partition Horrors Remembrance Day. 74 years had already passed since partition. Why did the government feel the need to institutionalize a day of remembrance at that particular point in time? What was the larger objective behind this decision?
Before I come to your point, let me inform our listeners, as you also pointed out, why 74 years since independence, nobody bothered, even thought of what exactly happened, and we attained freedom at what cost. So it was only on 14th August 2021 that the Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the first time declared that 14th August annually will be remembered as Partition Horrors Remembrance Day, and idea was to remind the nation, and particularly the younger generation, the present generation, and as well as the future generations, of the sufferings and sacrifices of Indians during the partition in 1947. And since then, every year, August 14 has been observed or marked as Partition Horrors Remembrance Day all over the country. Especially, events have been organized every year, if I may say so, in different parts of the country. And these events include special observance in honor of the partition victims in Amritsar, in New Delhi, Kolkata, and many other parts of the country. And especially this year, special events are being observed in Amritsar, New Delhi, and Kolkata. And these events are basically commemorative events which feature exhibitions, music, and multimedia presentations detailing historical displacement, and these are also hosted by the Ministry of Culture, Government of India. So this has been the practice which has been going on since 2021. Now the question is, why did it occur to Prime Minister Modi to declare this a special day? If I may quote him, the Prime Minister had said on 14th August 2021, he had said that the partition's pains can never be forgotten. Millions of our sisters and brothers were displaced, and many lost their lives due to the mindless hate and violence. So in memory of the struggles and sacrifices of our people, henceforth, 14th August will be observed as Partition Horrors Remembrance Day, and may the Partition Horror Remembrance Day keep reminding us of the need to remove the poison of social divisions, disharmony, and further strengthen the spirit of oneness, social harmony, and human empowerment. That is exactly what the Prime Minister Modi had said in 2021. And this year again, in his message today, in a social media post, Prime Minister Modi has termed the partition as a moment in history that tore apart several lives, where families were uprooted, loved ones were lost, and immense suffering was endured. At the same time, people overcame this and rebuilt their lives from nothing, turned adversity into achievement, and contributed immensely to the nation's progress. Now, this in nutshell is the story how and why we observe this Horror Remembrance Day.
Absolutely, sir. When we speak of the horrors of partition, we think of the numbers. Those displaced, widespread violence, enormous loss of lives. But there are also individual stories of people, their families, their homes. From your perspective, how should we understand the human dimension of partition?
See, the horrors of partition basically refers to the catastrophic sectarian violence, mass displacement, and brutal human suffering that accompanied the division of British India into independence India and 15th August 1947. So one reason why it happened was, if I may say, the wrong policies of the British government, because they rushed into this division. It was not a well thought of decision of the British government. Because of that, it was in a very short span of time. The way the Radcliffe Commission came to India to demarcate the boundaries, and even his report was not made public before independence was announced. So that in a hush-hush manner, the way Britisher announced this division or partition, and that led to large-scale violence, and it uprooted nearly 20 million people and led to an estimated 200,000 to 1 million deaths. You can imagine the catastrophe the partition brought for all of us in this country.
Partition itself is very painful, but could this have been avoided altogether?
One way perhaps it could have been avoided, I wish it would have been avoided, was to create public opinion in favor of it. See, there was no discussion, no talk, no dialogue going on, and the people were absolutely unaware of what was expected. People were only expected one thing, and they were expecting the independence of India from the British Raj. But they were not at all aware of what events are likely to unfold. Like, although there was no media, not much of literacy, but they were public. See the kind of agitation which were taking place for independence struggle. So if people had been taken into confidence, perhaps the bloodshed and the loss of life would have been reduced. But essentially, the reason was that Lord Mountbatten rushed the independence and division process, shortening the time and fixing August 15, which was not at all on the calendar. Even if it was coming, independence, it was expected to be later in the year. But for some reason, it was advanced to 15th of August. So, shortening the process of independence and not revealing the boundary or the division or the maps as they call it. The maps were not even discussed. In fact, one report says that Lord Mountbatten kept the map of a partition in his own locker. And it was made public only on the 17th of August. That means 2 days after independence, it was announced that which part of the British India would be going towards India or which would be going towards Pakistan or East Pakistan as we know it. So unfortunate events, that is why it is very essential that the present generation and the future generations must know what exactly happened 80 years ago and what was the fault of the poor Indians. They were not at all at fault. So all these things were thrust upon us, and that is why we need to remember, that is why the Remembrance Day. All our future generation would also know we attained independence, but at what cost? And particularly the families who were uprooted. It took them decades to settle down. If I am not wrong, the Purana Killa in Delhi was housing thousands and thousands of refugees in tents. There were no basic facilities, and they were allotted perhaps permanent residencies only about 20 years later. So you can imagine the suffering of the people. So who will tell this story to our generation? So therefore Remembrance Day.
Also, when you were talking about people being unaware about the partition, information and more important than that, misinformation and rumor, that played a big role in people becoming violent or people getting charged up or people not knowing where to go. During partition, rumors and fear played a big role in intensifying tensions and violence. In today's age of social media and instant information, do you see parallels between the spread of misinformation then and the potential of misinformation to deepen social divisions today?
Those days, obviously, perhaps there was only All India Radio, which people believed. So that was also in a way handicapped because no prior details were available. How to inform people that the partition is coming and how the division has been made.
Right.
So now when we look at the present situation, The social media is very active, but unfortunately some of the elements, I won't say the same elements who are demanding partition of India, but there are elements even in independent India who still believe in, spreading disinformation,
Right.
rumors, false propaganda, false narrative, and some of it is sponsored from across the border as well.
Right.
So India has been facing the twin challenges. One challenge on the border where we have fought 3 wars and won. The other is terrorism. That also is being propagated, engineered, and in fact funded from across the border. So they are also making full use of the social media. So we have been facing this challenge not only on border but also terrorism, plus now the social media sort of invasion into our cultural heritage and our composite culture, our unity. So we have to be very careful.
Right. Ashok sir, there is also a very delicate question here. How do we remember the horrors of partition honestly without allowing remembrance to become a means of perpetuating hatred or hostility between communities today?
After this whole thing occurred, critics of Partition of India, they pointed out to the displacement of 15 million people, the killing of more than 1 million people, and rapes of 75,000 women. Now, to say that we need to forget about it, it's not an easy job. People have not yet forgotten, and we also don't want people to forget it. But that should not create animosity or hatred among communities in India or even among the people in Pakistan. I know for certain that people in Pakistan as well as people in India, they want to live in harmony. If I may quote former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who said that we can change friends but we can't change our neighbors.
Right.
So as good neighbor, we have to live in good neighborly relations. Successive Indian governments have tried to improve bilateral relations with Pakistan through dialogue without invoking any third party. But unfortunately, political situation in Pakistan remains such that the military dominates there and they are not willing to allow India to live in peace through their terrorist activities or even skirmishes on the border. So therefore, people to people contact should be encouraged because people on both sides, they want to live in peace. But by and large, the people are not those who create problems. It is these fringe elements like terrorists, those who create such problems, and they don't allow people on both sides to live in peace. So therefore, the challenge is not only before us as Indians, but the biggest challenge is also before the people of Pakistan who want to live in India in peaceful manner. They want to improve trade with India. They want to improve tourism with India, but nobody listens to them. So therefore, this is an occasion for the people of Pakistan also to ponder over, because they are celebrating their Independence Day today and they need to understand why all these things happen. So therefore, I think people of Pakistan need to realize that they should also stand up and try to make peace with India so that both the neighbors can live in peace.
As the generation that directly experienced the partition gradually passes on, what do you think is the most important lesson for India to remember, and what should it preserve, not just in its archives but also in its collective memory?
If I may quote the Prime Minister today, what he said, "May this day deepen our resolve to preserve harmony and brotherhood in our nation and collectively work towards building a Viksit Bharat. And let us further strengthen the national spirit of goodwill and unity." Now, he is still appealing to his own people.
Right.
That we need to not forget the horrors, but at the same time, we should also be thinking in a very positive direction, in a positive manner. We are moving toward a Viksit Bharat, and that is why the unity, integrity of India on all fronts needs to be demonstrated, and the younger generation needs to understand all these things.
On that positive note, we pay homage to the millions who lost their lives, their homes and loved ones, and also honor the survivors whose stories remind us of the human cost of division and the extraordinary human capacity to rebuild it. Thank you so much for this wonderful interview, Ashok sir.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on the Partition Horrors Remembrance Day, remembering the past, reaffirming the commitment to unity. The participants were Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and Ramya, anchor. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsctalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 9289094044.
Spotlight.